Advisory services offered through VestGen Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Private Client Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Private Client Services and VestGen Advisors, LLC are unaffiliated entities. Any information discussed does not constitute investment advice. VestGen Advisors and Private Client Services do not offer tax or legal advice. People of Chicago, welcome to In the Know Radio with Craig Bolanos, co-founder and wealth advisor at VestGen Wealth Partners. You want help from someone you can trust, someone who knows what it takes to get retired and stay retired. Today, Craig's going to teach you what you need to know. So get ready to learn something that could change your life. Get connected to the show by calling 833-964-PLAN or go to getretiredstayretired.com. And now, here's Craig Bolanos.
Hey, good morning and happy Sunday. Oh my gosh, Trump, tariffs, taxes. What are the things that you need to know in order to protect yourself? Because you can't just amass money and get retired. We need to help keep you retired. Oh, and by the way, there's something trending that's out there. It's now called Die with Zero. Die with zero. I had to reread that headline not once, not twice, but thrice. Die with zero. We're going to talk about what die with zero means in a little bit. And then, yes, if you're not deploying alternative investments and different things into your portfolio structure, you might just be missing the boat. I got to make sure you have a seat with us. Now, every Sunday, we come to you giving you sincere and actionable ideas that you can use to improve the lives of yourself and your loved ones financially. And I had a treat. I'm doing it with a phone in, and because it's a phone in, it might not be the greatest quality, but here we are, Sunday morning, one of my most trusted confidants who solves the avalanche issue in American financial planning. No, it's not sending your kids to college. No, it's not getting retired and stay retired. I'll help you with that. It's long-term care. Jean, good morning. Happy Sunday. Thanks for coming back on with us.
Good morning.
Jean, I want you to set the stage. Give us a 60-second soliloquy on why long-term care has become the avalanche issue in American financial planning.
Today, we're dealing with the silver tsunami. We're dealing with baby boomers hitting an age where they need care. Their children are the sandwich generation. They're raising children of their own, and now their parents need care. The cost of care is going through the roof as demand is soaring and the market is not meeting the needs. The costs are going through the roof and people can't afford it any longer. People are losing jobs because they're caring for their parents. People are losing their peace of mind as they're looking for options out there. It's absolutely terrible what's happening. People are relying on Medicaid, and their choices and their dignity are just going out the window. It's absolutely terrible what's happening, and people need to plan for it earlier and earlier and earlier today.
Well, Jean, I am so happy you used a couple of phrases that we're going to unpack. I picked up on them. Number one was the silver tsunami. So if you're just joining us, I'm bringing in a special guest, an expert in the entire field that is long-term care. And we talk all the time that there are age wave demographics, population density studies that are making our country old. But that silver tsunami, as Jean just said, means there is such insatiable demand for home health care, assisted living, skilled nursing, memory care, rehabilitation for in case you go down the stairs and you do both hips or both knees at the same time. And because of this intersection of demand, the prices are going through the roof. And Jean, you mentioned something. Talk to me a little bit more about this sandwich generation, because gosh, it's true. I love my mother-in-law. Linda, shout out. I know you're listening. Yes. Linda, if you're not listening, you're in trouble. But Linda's been with us, my mother-in-law, for 15 years now. It's actually the greatest experience having her on property, on campus. But I recognize that so many people don't have their kids living near them, or the kids don't necessarily have a professional endeavor that allows them to help take care of mom, right? Talk a little bit about that, Jean.
Absolutely. The internet has changed the way we all live and where we all live. Most of the country does not have their children, the parents don't have their children near them, and that's changed the generations very quickly. If you do have your parents near you, you want to care for your parents, but you're raising your children, you have your own career. And it's absolutely just not an option for a lot of people. So now the parents are forced to rely on their own savings. They're draining their own savings quickly. You've got one person who needs care out of a couple. That person's getting care, but then their partner is left with nothing to care for themselves. And that person, the second person needing care, ends up on Medicaid.
Ooh, let's pause there because you said, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's so important. I said, we're going to unpack some of your info. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the avalanche issue in American financial planning with the renowned expert, Gene Osman, on long-term care. Gene, you talked earlier about dignity and staying off of Medicaid, right?
Yes.
But here you just framed it a bit different. You framed the long-term care discussion between a married couple about protecting the healthy spouse.
Correct.
Talk about what it means to you as a professional in long-term care planning to protect the healthy spouse.
To protect the healthy spouse, you need to have a sinking fund. You need to have long-term care available for both people, for both spouses. If you have one unhealthy spouse, that person may not be able to get long-term protection. You need to have funds available for that first person who may need care, but then after that person may be gone, you need to have funds available for the second person who's left behind now who needs long-term care, where the first person may have used up all of their savings. Now you've got that second person who needs care, and they better have a sinking fund available to them for when they need care one day so that they're not left in a Medicaid situation where their options and their dignity are no longer there. And they're relying on Medicaid in a facility that they didn't choose, in a situation that they didn't choose, in a room that they're now sharing with another Medicaid patient.
Well, wait a second. Hold on. 833-964-PLAN. 833-964-PLAN. GetRetiredStayRetired.com. Gene, I've been living in my own bedroom since I got out of the house. You got to explain to me, because I even hear people in Congress mistake Medicaid versus Medicare. In brevity, what's the difference between Medicare that I love and Medicaid that I fret over? And what did you say about having to have a roommate if you need long-term care?
Medicare is doctors, hospitals, medication. Medicaid is long-term care, custodial care if you cannot afford care on your own. Medicaid is the government assistance. It is welfare. And guess what? It is not an entitlement. It is a loan. It is a loan. And again, it is welfare. And guess what? The government does not pay for private nursing home rooms when you need welfare.
Got it. So, Gene, this show, one thing, sincere, actionable ideas. That's the purpose. If people want to learn more about long-term care, if people want to connect with us and connect with our expert, Gene, 833-964-PLAN, 833-964-PLAN. Get retired, stayretired.com. Gene, we can't solve it, but what excites you about some of the solutions that you've been delivering to clients of our firm and people across this great nation?
Used to be that long-term care plans, the premiums could go up and they were use it or lose it. They had no cash value. Today, that no longer exists. Premiums are fixed. They cannot go up. You can walk away from the plan and take cash out of it. And if you don't need long-term care in your lifetime, your family will get a death benefit equal to pretty much what you put in. It's not use it or lose it anymore.
So there's long-term care solutions available today that answer the vexing question that it's not use it or lose it. So the premiums I pay can come back into my estate if I die without going on coverage. That's fantastic. Part number two, do these solutions that you're talking about, Gene, do we have a way to protect ourselves from future premium risk, or can the insurance company come back and raise the prices on us in the future?
No, the premiums are fixed. They're guaranteed not to increase in the future, and the benefits are guaranteed not to decrease in the future.
Got it. So guaranteed, renewable, non-cancelable, different than what's out there in the marketplace. Why do these new policies exist? And listen, you were in the green room before we jumped on. You even mentioned this indemnity thing versus reimbursement. Weave that into the discussion because I think our listeners want to know.
Absolutely. The need for the policies was there. The market demanded that these policies be created. Silver Tsunami demanded that these policies be out there. And now, in addition, as you mentioned, instead of reimbursement where you're sending in bills 1 month to get repaid the next month, now you're simply receiving a check for whatever your monthly benefit is, and you're spending that money once you qualify to be on claim. You're receiving that money monthly, and you do with that money as you see fit. You hire whoever you want to be your caregiver, even if that is your niece or your daughter, whoever you want, you spend the money as you see fit for your care.
Well, I tell you what, I love Jean, and I want you to love her too. She is a wealth of information. I know we don't get to talk about it in the platform of radio. We can only touch on the surface. But if you've sat here wondering, how is your family going to deal with the avalanche issue in American financial planning, which is care for mom? And now you realize, wait, you are mom. If you want to learn more, you can. And you know what? You absolutely should. 833-964-PLAN. That's 833-964-PLAN. Connect with us on our website, getretired.stay-retired.com. Let's go through an exploratory journey that is educational in nature so that you can work with professionals on our team like Jean to create something that is as unique as the common denominator of your last name. All right, we got to pay some bills. Jean, fantastic. Thank you for dialing in on a Sunday morning amongst your activities. Stay tuned, more to come. In the Know, AM 560, The Answer.
It's more In the Know Radio with Craig Balanas on AM 560 The Answer, where his goal is to pummel you with financial know-how until you say uncle.
Oh, I teased it at the top of a Sunday hour. Die with zero. Wait, the die with zero rule of retirement? What in the world is that? It was such a catchy headline, but it's been trending. We got to talk about what does it mean to die with zero? Well, listen, over the next 2 decades, there's going to be an estimated $90 trillion that passes from older generations to the next in what's been dubbed the Great Wealth Transfer. Now, that's a huge shift. That's a crazy amount of money. But if you ask some people what's really being transferred, it's not money. It's not money that's being transferred. It's $90 trillion of unlived experiences. Wow, 90 trillion of unlived experiences. That's interesting. So many people joke about dying with zero, meaning, hey, put me in the grave when I spent my last dollar. But the reality is, here's what I see as a practitioner. I see more often than not people dying with the most money they've ever had exactly at the point in time they don't need it. How weird is that? How many of you are listening today? Here you are, March of 2025, and sure, the stock market's taken a bit of a step back, but it's only one step back before it takes 2 steps forward. Do you have the best financial security right now in March of 2025 that you've ever had? Take a look at the value of your property. Take a look at the value of your portfolio. And for many people, you know what the answer is? Is yes. And you know what? It can become a repeatable experience, especially if you get into retirement and you work with advisors that have strategies that are TNT, tested in the trenches. Now, when we talk about this idea of dying with zero, I think what it means is there's far too many people that are retiring without a well-laid plan. And when you retire without a well-laid cash flow plan, guess what happens? You don't trust the math because you're just kind of going along for the ride. And hence you're nervous, and hence you're anxious, and hence you spend less than you could. And remember, who doesn't regret listen, I'm going to say it my way. I regret all the things that I didn't do much more so than the things that I did. Let me say that to you again. I regret the things I did not do much more than the things I actually did. And if that resonates with you, and I chuckle when I say it, then we need to figure out a way for you to enjoy and spend your money. And I think that gets into a discussion of phased retirement spending. Let's talk about phased retirement spending. See, the modern world of financial planning is still living in the 1990s. That was many presidential cycles ago. And in the modern world of financial planning, what far too many people are planning on doing is having a certain amount of money to spend every single month from day one of retirement to day last, adjusted for inflation. Well, here's my comment. Why do I want to plan for maybe 5, 75, 100, 10,000 a month forever when maybe I can change the script and I can develop a strategy where I can spend a lot more money in the first 10 to 15 years of my retirement, and then plan on spending a reasonable amount of money in the next 10 years of my retirement, and then knowing by the time I actually get old and frail, if I'm fortunate enough to make it there, I'm going to have a dose of responsibility and not live poor, but just live comfortably. Hey, you know what? That's okay. Because what I see in the American retiree is no longer is retirement about reading a newspaper in the backyard and sitting in a hammock. No, retirement in America today is about adult active lifestyle. Retirement in America today, to talk about Gene Osman and what we were discussing earlier about long-term care, the family nucleus is now decentralized. No one lives near each other the way they used to. You used to grow up on the block, and grandma and grandpa and mom and dad and the kids were all on the same block in the same suburb. That's just not the case. So part of retirement is not just adult active lifestyle. Shout out to everybody on the pickleball court with me. You know what else it is? It's about being connected. It's about visiting with the kids. It's about travel and leisure. It's about meals and entertainment. So maybe this concept of, how to die with zero, which is this new trend that's receiving a whole lot of criticism, right? The concept of die with zero, because people are like, oh, wait, you're not addressing longevity risk. Oh, wait, die with zero. You're not addressing unexpected expenses. Oh, wait, die with zero. There's all this complexity. Well, here's what I think. Maybe we should take the die with zero concept and apply it to something that's sincere and actionable, which means phased spending. I think retirement planning should now be about phased spending. Let's make sure that first 10 to 15 years, we've got the money and the cash flow we need to pursue life. And let's lay it out with strategies that are tested in the trenches. And then let's agree that maybe the next 10 to 15 years thereafter come at a more reasonable pace of spending. And if you're so lucky that you make it to phase 3 of retirement, so many people don't, then you can be a little bit less spendy. But that's okay. How many people do you know where retirement near the end is you go to the grocery store daily, you go to church, and you visit doctors? You don't need a lot of discretionary income for that. So if you want to learn about phase spending, and you've always joked about this, bury me when I've spent my last dollar, the concept of die with zero, I think we have an intersection of the concept and planning strategies that are going to help you. 833-964-PLAN. That's 833-964-PLAN. Connect with us online. GetRetiredStayRetired.com. That's GetRetiredStayRetired.com. Now, if you are going to plan for retirement, whether it's die with zero, wink, wink, phased spending more, and then gradually ratcheting it down over the years, you got to have a system. And our system, of course, is the 3 pillars of retirement income. And pillar number one is your capital matters, your capital matters, your capital matters. We get it. We are long-term investors, but we also recognize that you can ill afford to have an event on the eve of or just into retirement where you expose your money to large volatile swings. Can't do it. Part number two, you got to have a system to make sure that you're generating sufficient dividends, sufficient interest, sufficient payments to cover your spend. Because if you're generating the income, leaving the corpus, you're never going to be forced to sell anything, even if prices temporarily go down, kind of like they've gone down temporarily since the highs we had the third week of February until where we're at today in the market. And then you got to back it up with pillar number three. Pillar number three, after protection, after the generation of income, is all about growing that capital base over time so that you can grow your income, so that you can outrun the silent killer, which is inflation. Inflation is the silent killer. Sure as anything. If your property taxes doubled in the last 20 years, that's a good proxy that your property taxes are going to double in the next 20 years when you're retired. Take a look at what the postage stamp, there's a proxy for inflation in America. Look at what the postage stamp costs 20 years ago compared to what it is today. Take a look at all the things you do in life, your auto insurance, your homeowner's insurance, the price of unsweetened iced tea, hell, the price of a bag of your favorite crisps or chips or Doritos, whatever they might be. If the price has doubled in the last 20 years, the price might double again in the next 20 years when you're retired. And if you don't have a plan to double, if not triple, your capital base, you're going to fall short. If all this feels overwhelming, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be, because we have been helping clients get retired and stay retired. Whether clients got retired because of reductions in force, global outsourcing, that was all the dot-com bubble. Whether clients got retired not by their choice as a result of the great financial crisis, all of the businesses that shut down and did layoffs, or whether COVID came and we slammed the economy into a tree for reasons that didn't make sense. There's people that got forced into retirement. All those people that we represent, they're still retired. They still have money. And now they're on a pathway where here we are. They do have the most money they've ever had exactly at the point in time they don't need it. And that experience has caused us to reflect upon and say, phased retirement spending. We're doing the go-go years. You plan to spend more. And then you slow down, you spend a little less. And then if you accept it, there's eventually a period of time where it's kind of the slow go or no-go years. Just plan on consuming less, because that's American. And you know what? If you're a part of that $90 trillion of wealth transfer, don't let it be just a transfer of wealth. Don't let it be unlived experiences. Let's use the money and enjoy what we've worked our entire lives for. We stand ready to help you do that. More to come in the Know, AM 560.
You want more in the Know Radio? You want more in the Know Radio? You can't handle more in the Know Radio. Okay, yeah, you can. And it's on AM 560. The Answer. Welcome back. Here's more with Craig.
You know, part of being in the know is making a determination as to whether you want to do defined outcome investing. And we've talked in previous shows about permanence and definition that comes from the proper deployment of bonds or fixed income with guaranteed maturity dates. But there's another form of defined outcome investing that we've talked about in the past. And what is that? It's cap and cushion. So what is it? How does it work? Why use it? Where might it fit? Let's get educated. All right. So this concept of cap and cushion is simply saying, hey, we want to continue to participate in great companies of America up to a cap, but we want to define what our downside is. And that concept comes from the idea that if you manage the downside, the upside is always going to take care of itself. So when I think about these defined outcome investment solutions that we have, some of them come with a buffer. And a buffer can mean over the course of 12 months, you can protect yourself from the first 15%, the first 20%, or the first 30% of loss. So let's say between those three choices, 15%, 20%, or 30% protection, let's assume the market falls 12% and you have 20% downside buffer. What are you going to lose? Nothing, because the market fell 12% and you had 20% downside buffer. Say the market fell 19% and you had a 20% downside buffer. How much are you going to lose? Nothing. Say the market falls 20% and you have a 20% downside buffer. How much are you going to lose? Nothing. Say the market falls 27% and you have a 20% downside buffer. How much loss do you experience? 7%. That's the simple concept of a buffer. And the upside or the cap works the same way. The larger the buffer, the smaller the cap is going to be. But if you are in a position where you can cap your upside gains at 10 to 15% and get good downside buffer protection, for some people, that might resonate and make sense. And maybe 2025 becomes a year that people want to just take some Tylenol. Does Tylenol ever cure an underlying condition? No, of course it doesn't. But you know what? Tylenol, it takes the edge off. It's kind of the fever reducer, the headache make it go away, the massive hangover. Wait, you can do a Bloody Mary for that instead. No, I'm joking. Okay, here's what I want you to think about. If the gyrations have you worried, Trump, tariff, taxes, now odds are you probably are in favor of what's happening. Odds are you're probably in favor of America first. Odds are you want fair and balanced trade. But you're worried not about our actions, you're worried about other countries' reactions to our actions. That's what the market's up in arms about. The market's not so much up in arms about the current administration. The market's up in arms about how are other countries possibly reacting to our demand for balanced trade. And if you want to take the edge off, that doesn't mean you have to exit equities. It means you just take some money from your stocks that you're completely vulnerable in, and you move them into defined outcome investments whereby you have a guaranteed amount of downside buffer or protection in exchange for a cap. Okay. And I think this makes sense if you believe we're heading into an environment that is still going to grow, slow growth, but isn't going to be as robust as the last several years. And I think, you know what? That's probably going to be true because we talked on this radio program just last week that bull markets, by the way, we're still in one, that last at least 2 years tend to be more durable. But guess what? Year number 3, which is the year we're in, oftentimes is the lowest return parameter. So maybe that's a reason that you might want to start incorporating some cap and cushion into your portfolio to let you stay in the game, but have some more sleep at night protection. Because I think of retirees, and there's a lot of retirees who say, I want to participate in the market, but I would love if there was a built-in buffer against loss. Check the box. Defined outcome investing with your friends at VestGen Wealth Partners, we can do that. Number 2, there's retirees who say, I'm just looking for a potential alternative to other similar investments. What am I talking about? Not everybody wants to buy an annuity. Not everybody wants to tie their money up for 5 to 7 years. So a defined outcome ETF with a cap and a buffer, that's an alternative to an annuity. There's a lot of people who say, hey, I'm retired. I don't know that I can afford the risk of equities, but I also can't afford to put too much of my money in fixed income that has yields that are just outpacing inflation. Well, this is, again, an opportunity to get you right sized. So if you want to learn more about defined outcome investing, the type of investing where you have a known downside, you have a known quantifiable upside, and you want to participate in something that doesn't require you to buy an annuity, doesn't require your money to go ahead and be tied up for 5, 7, 10, 12, 14 years. You want something that's a very simplified 12 to 15 month solution, then defined outcome investments are probably for you. How do you learn more? Go to our website, getretiredstayretired.com. That's getretiredstayretired.com. Phone number is always 833-964-PLAN. That's 833-964-PLAN. So you can incorporate these really as a companion to your core holding. It's an alternative to those minimum volatility strategies. It's an alternative to annuities. The right type of product can be an alternative to some portion of fixed income. It's a great equity hedge. And I think for those who are just getting nervous, it makes all the sense in the world, which is why something else that makes sense in the world is deploying alternative investments. I want people in 2025 to be diversifying their diversifiers, diversifying your diversifiers, more asset classes than just stocks and bonds. I think it's going to be important because the inflation, well, it's been going down, but it's not going down at the pace we want. I hope this gets turned around. The Federal Reserve, they're not raising rates, but they're not rushing to cut either. It kind of means the Fed is on pause. Growth, we're having our first growth scare since the growth scare we had last August. Now, notice I said growth scare. It's hopefully going to turn out just to be a scare. As long as the U.S. consumer remains exceptional, we're going to be in a great spot. But maybe that means all of these concepts, defined outcome investing, the cap and cushion strategy, what I've been pounding the table on for weeks now, getting some dollars out of publicly traded markets into private markets, diversifying our diversifiers, especially from core fixed income into places like private credit to capture the yields, going further into some parts of real estate that make sense, like industrial warehousing to support all of the goods and services that are moving by truck from the big concrete bunker with 80 garage doors just in time to your doorstep in a cardboard box. Those are all investable themes in a private marketplace away from the huge up and downs that we see in publicly traded stock and bonds. If you want to learn more, you should, and you absolutely can. 833-964-PLAN. Connect with us online. GetRetiredStayRetired.com. That's GetRetiredStayRetired.com. All right, you're listening to In the Know Radio with myself, Craig Bolanos, co-founder and wealth advisor, VestGen Wealth Partners. We're here to help you get retired and stay retired. We got more news coming up after this. AM 560, The Answer.
Would you like a dose of knowledge? Good, because Craig is back and about to fill your retirement prescription. Back to In the Know Radio on AM 560, The Answer.
I always say it's about sincere and actionable ideas. And you know what that means? That means we got to go counterculture. We got to go against all the retirement misinformation that's out there. And you know what? I came up with 5 retirement myths. Why 5? Guys, I'm keeping it simple on a Sunday morning here. I only got 5 fingers, right? So let's go through my 5 retirement myths. Myth number 1, You can't retire until you reach 65. I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions I see is that you got to wait until 65. And I think where that comes from is so many people say to themselves, you know what? I just got to wait until I'm Medicare eligible at 65. There's no way for me to retire prior to. And I remind people that if you get in front of this with the planning process, there is a reason COBRA exists. There is a reason you can get private health care. It exists. You can go on exchange, off exchange, participate in a self-insured risk pool. You know, we talked earlier about this huge, massive transfer of wealth, $90 trillion that's going to move over the next 20 years. And a lot of that 90 trillion are experiences that weren't lived, meaning people didn't spend the money when they should have. Well, in the same way, if you've got the finances, if you've got the financial stature, why not retire prior to 65? I mean, good heavens, you don't get the time back. And if you've properly structured your monies and structured your income so that you have money that's tax deferred, money that's forever tax free, money that is taxable, you might have enough levers to pull and play that you can stay away from that evil income related monthly Medicare adjustment amount. You've got levers that you can pull to maybe get a subsidy on your pre-Medicare healthcare. There's just different things you can do. So myth number one, you got to wait until 65. No, you don't. You don't. A lot of people do. Doesn't mean you have to. You just got to have the money in the plan. Myth number two, people define their longevity through their aunts, uncles, and parents. And damn it, I know what that's like. I lost my dad. I lost my mom, lost my father-in-law, seen what happens. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, you're going to be different. Maybe you did get educated. Maybe you did get access to a good job that provided access to good health care. Maybe you accept that you have a knowledge base over health and wellness that's far beyond what previous generations did. And maybe as a result of that, you could end up living 3, 5, 7, 10, 15 years longer than other families did. And if so, you got to make sure you have a plan. So don't think your retirement's going to be very short and use that as an excuse to engineer poor decisions with questionable outcomes. Instead, plan for a series of bookends. Like, this is what might happen based on my family. That's one bookend. And then here's what it actually could be, the other bookend. And then let's create a plan of phased retirement spending so that you can pursue life, worry less, live more, because everything you've done to this point is about getting ready to retire. And we just need to help you put it together. 833-964-PLAN, 833-964-PLAN. Go out to our website, getretiredstayretired.com. All right, myth number 3. I said it in my opening segment with our guest today, Gene, who deals with long-term care. I said, I love Medicare. Oh, guys, I do. I actually love Medicare. In fact, I would argue you will too, because if you follow best practices for Part A as in apple, Part B as in boy, Part C as in Charlie, Part D as in drug, and you pair it with the right other plans, Part G as in girl, N as in Nancy, you name it, it can be a glorious experience. But myth number 3, because we are talking about 5 myths of retirement, myth number 3 is that Medicare is going to cover all my healthcare needs. Well, stop the presses, guys. You already know that it doesn't. I mean, Medicare doesn't cover all medications, certainly doesn't cover all things health related, doesn't cover long-term care, doesn't cover vision, doesn't cover dental. And as retirees age, you're going to have these medical costs. I mean, you see different studies that somebody's going to need to have between $165,000 to as much as $215,000 for unreimbursed healthcare expenses in retirement. That's not long-term care. We're talking copays, deductible, teeth, eyewear, elective procedures, you name it. So don't think that you don't need a plan that has a sinking fund set aside for retiree health care. You need to. And if you're still working, that's why we're such a fan of tools like health savings accounts that are triple tax preference, tax deductible, tax deferred growth, tax-free distribution, can be invested in great companies of America so you can participate in compound growth over time, the eighth wonder of the world. Well, what's myth number 4? Myth number 4 has been long held. Myth number 4 when it comes to retirement is my expenses are going to decrease in retirement. Oh, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that's going to decrease. Maybe you're not traveling to work anymore. You just got rid of your train pass. You're not paying the tolls. It's not the wear and tear on the car. You're not going to run over as many potholes this time of season as you used to. But everything else, it's going to go up. I mean, when you own your time, you might think you're going to cook at home. No, you're already addicted to eating out. When you own your time and you start seeing other people your age or people you know about get sick and injured, you're going to want to travel. You're going to want to have leisure. You're going to want to upgrade that pickleball paddle from the $125 to the $250 because it makes you feel good. Oh, it does play better, by the way, just so you know. So don't think that your expenses are going to decrease in retirement. But don't let that worry you, because you can use what we talked about in segment number 2 today. In case you missed it, go check it out on our website, getretiredstayretired.com, how to incorporate phase spending into your retirement plan. Phase spending for the go-go years, then the slow-go years, then the no-go years. Myth number 5. I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I retire. No. TIR, taxes in retirement, are legitimately your mortal enemy. You got 2 of them. Your mortal enemy when it comes to staying retired, it's the silent killer, which is inflation, and it's TIR, taxes in retirement. Don't believe me? Don't believe me? We just talked in our opening segment about the silver tsunami. That's what our guest talked about today, the silver tsunami. It's age wave demographics. Listen, guys, we're going to have to pay for everything because everyone's going to vote for everything. And because everyone's going to vote with their own pocketbook and America is graying, we're going to have to raise revenue. And that revenue raise, which is a nice way of saying increased tax receipts, it's not just going to happen with tariffs and equal trade. It's not just going to happen by taxing those who are still working. It's going to come for everybody. So when people say there's a ticking time bomb in your 401k and your IRA, I don't think it's a time bomb, but I think it's a problem. And we got to find ways to address it so that you go into retirement being tax diversified, because you got to protect choice. That's what it's all about. It's protecting choice. That's what I want to help you do. 833-964-PLAN. 833-964-PLAN. GetRetiredStayRetired.com. When I say protect choice, it kind of is what this country's all about. Let's come together. Let's write a great document. Call it the Constitution. Let's make sure we have enough protections so that free men and free women can have a set of rules and a set of governance and a system and a military. But then, you know what? The government stays out of our way. We just take care of ourselves so we can do what we want to do when we want to do it on our own terms. And if you feel like I do, I want to connect with you. 833-964-PLAN. GetRetiredStayRetired.com.
Okay, Windy City, get ready to be blown away with a hefty gust of financial know-how. You're listening to In the Know Radio with Craig Bolanos on AM 560. The Answer.
So I was talking to producer George on the break again, and you know what? What do we talk about to wrap up the show? It's something that I think is trending. I've mentioned it for a couple of weeks. Lots of you have called to learn more. 833-964-PLAN. But I'm reminding people that Bitcoin did turn 16 years old. I'm reminding people that in America, there are numerous United States officials who have contemplated, proposed, and advanced legislation to add Bitcoin as strategic reserves to their individual state's treasury. In addition, look at what President Trump has done for us as a nation in being a leader in cryptocurrency. There's international adoption that's happened. You also have to note the accounting changes and mark-to-market boost that Bitcoin and cryptos are getting on the books of corporations in America. And then don't forget that we just celebrated last month in February the 1-year anniversary of a series of cryptocurrency exchange-traded funds that finished in the top 20 ETF launches of all time. And then I come back. It was in the news again this week on the policy front. Donald Trump doubling down, maybe it's tripling down at this point beyond just his executive order about creating the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets, strengthening U.S. leadership in digital finance. So I'm not here to tell people you should be in Bitcoin. I'm not here to tell people you should be in Ethereum, but I'm here to tell people that if you're not getting educated on digital currency and not thinking about its long-term implications, you could be coming up short. And if you want to have conversations about how this whole thing started, what exactly is the blockchain? What are the virtual currencies that may have staying power? What are the different ways to participate? Well, we can help you do that because Bitcoin, like many things, it's had a volatile start to 2025. But the reality is adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies into investor portfolios globally continues to expand. The regulatory outlook has also improved, and that reflects two fundamental tailwinds that are in place for the intermediate future. 833-964-PLAN. That's 833-964-PLAN. Go out to our website, getretiredstayretired.com. When you're there, download some of our guides. When you're there, click on all of my TV and other radio appearances from the last 2 weeks. It's great content. I want you to check it out. GetRetiredStayRetired.com. This is Craig Bolanos in the know. VestGen Wealth Partners, AM 560. The Answer.